Hey,
give
ba.
them.
Somebody kalipopo.
Once upon a time, in a quiet village surrounded by thick trees and singing birds, there lived a poor farmer called Ikena and his wife Neka. They had two daughters, Ego and Amaka, as beautiful as the morning sun but as stubborn as a goat that drank palm wine. Ikena was a humble man who worked from sunrise to sunset in a small farm. He loved his family dearly, but his daughters gave him more headache than hunger. Ego, the elder one, was tall and proud. Amaka, the younger, was sharp-mouthed and wild. All they ever did was dance, pose, twerk, and record videos for social media. They called themselves the Famous Sisters and believed one day they would become rich and powerful, not by work, not by sense, but by likes, shares, and comments. Their mother, Nika, would return from the market, sweating, calling them to help wash plates or sweep the compound. But the girls would laugh and say, "Mama, abeg shift, we are live on Instagram." Their father, Ikena, once shouted until he lost his voice, "Ego, Amaka, must you dance before eating? Must you record every breath you take? This life is more than ring lights and filters." But they only rolled their eyes and posted the shouting online. They titled it POV Our Nagging Dad and laughed like foolish parrots. As time passed, the villagers began to complain. Elders frowned, young boys whispered, even small children would chant when they pass. "Here comes the TikTok queen, here comes the Shane." Ikena became tired. He stopped talking and began staying longer on his farm. One evening, he returned with tears in his eyes and told his wife, "I am tired of this shame. If I stay, I will die of heartbreak." And just like that, Ikena left the village to live with his brother in the next town. Ineka wept that night till her wrapper soaked. But still, Ego and Amaka danced. Still, they posed, pouted, and posted. Still, they mocked anyone who tried to advise them. And then one day came, a day no one saw coming, a day no one was supposed to step outside, a day the whole village knew was sacred, but the foolish sisters, blinded by vanity, chose that very day to film their biggest dance ever. But before the sacred day, Ego, the elder daughter, was known for her beauty. Young men came from far and near, suitors dressed in their best wrappers, bringing yams, drinks, even gold earrings. But Ego always sneered. "He is too poor. His shoes look local. He has only 1,000 followers." Her parents begged her. Even her mom, Neka, knelt and said, "Ego, beauty will fade. Marry a man with character." But Ego replied, "Mama, love is not by farm tools. I want a man that can take me to Dubai, not to the farm." She turned the compound into a fashion studio. She never helped with cooking, never swept the compound, never joined her mom to fry gari or peel cassava. Instead, Ego became a local celebrity. Every sunset, she would stand by the road, phone in her hand, saying, "Hi guys, today's makeup is giving village Barbie. Don't forget to like and subscribe." Even the elders warned her, "You cannot influence the gods." But Ego, she believed she was untouchable. Now let's talk about her younger sister Amaka. Where Ego had pride, Amaka had laziness, like it was her inheritance. She was sharp-tongued, quick to laugh, and quicker to sleep. When her mother tried to teach her how to sew, she said, "Me? Sew? Mama, abeg, I am not your generation, no." When her father tried to teach her how to plant yam, she giggled and said, "I can't do anything that makes my nails dirty." She refused to go to apprentice school, refused to learn hair, refused to learn makeup. All she did was follow Ego, twerk, and make jokes for their followers. She once told a group of village girls, "Why suffer now when you can blow online? Look at people that used to sell pure water, now they drive Benz." Mama Nika once cried and said, "Amaka, what if this YouTube crashes one day? Amaka laughed and said, "Then I'll switch to TikTok, Mama." The two sisters became the talk of the village, but not in a good way. They would dance near the village shrine, pose with a sacred palm tree, and use their father's old radio as a prop. Children copied them. Mothers complained. Fathers prayed for their own daughters to have sense, but Ego and Amaka, they believed the village was jealous of their shine. And then came the day of Ogunso, a day no one should go out, and the girls chose that very day to shake it for the gods. They chose that very day to go viral for the ancestral realms. That day was the day the villagers are meant to stay indoors. No talking, no singing, no sweeping. Even the birds kept quiet. It was a day of respect for the ancestors, for the land, and for peace. The village chief priest, Elder Okoro, a man with white chalk on his face and a staff taller than a yam barn, stood in the village square and declared with thunder in his voice, "Let no soul walk the road on Ogunso. Let no girl paint her face, and let no man make a sound. For the gods shall choose a sacrifice if they are mocked." The people nodded. Children were locked indoors. Fires were quenched. But as the sun began to set, and the land grew silent like a sweeping lion, Ego whispered, "Amaka, today will make us go viral." Amaka giggled. "Let's give them the Ogunso twerk challenge." They painted their faces, wore wrappers tied like city girls, and carried their ring light and tripod like it was their crown. They tiptoed into the sacred village path, the path no one dared walk on Ogunso. They danced, they laughed, they twerked. So many people joined their live stream that day, and then the wind changed. The air became heavy. Their ring lights flickered. Their phone screen went blank. Suddenly from the forest came a voice. Not one voice, many. Soft, then loud. "They have mocked us. They shall pay." The trees began to shake. The ground made a quiet cry. From the shadows appeared three masked men, dressed in white clothes, heads covered, no shoes. They moved without sound. They walked without fear. Ego and Amaka tried to run, but their legs froze. Their mouths opened to scream, but no sound came out. The masked men carried them, not touching them with hands, but with wind and fear. The next morning, the cock crowed. The sky turned from black to deep blue. The village slowly woke up to the sound of sweeping and firewood cracking. Nneka stretched from her mat and sat up. She rubbed her eyes and yawned. "Amaka, it is morning, oh. Come and warm the soup." But there was silence. "Ego, come and fetch water before people fill the well." Still silence. She stood up and went to the door of their room. She knocked. "Amaka, Ego," but there was no answer. She pushed the door open. The mat was empty. The wrappers were gone. Their slippers were missing. Her heart jumped. She rushed outside. "Ego, Amaka, where are you people?" No one answered. The compound was quiet. Too quiet. The sacred day had passed, and yet her daughters are nowhere to be found. Nneka's hand began to shake. She ran from one house to another, asking neighbors, "Please, have you seen my daughters? Did you see them yesterday evening?" They all shook their heads. One old woman whispered, "I saw two shadows near the shrine, but I was too afraid to look twice." By midday, Nneka packed a small bag and tied her scarf tight around her head. Tears filled her eyes, but her legs were strong. She walked for 2 hours, crossing the stream, passing 3 farms until she reached the next village, where her husband Ikenna was staying with his brother. She met him sitting under a mango tree peeling yam. When he saw her, he frowned and looked away. "What are you doing here?" he asked coldly. Nneka dropped her bag and knelt. "Ikenna, my husband, the girls are missing. They didn't come back home last night." He stood up slowly, fear washing over his face. What do you mean by that? I woke up this morning. I called them. They are not in the house, and nobody saw them. Ikenna held his head. His legs became weak. Ikenna and Nneka rushed back to the village. The sun was hot, but they didn't care. When they reached their compound, he entered the room. He saw the empty mats, the missing clothes, the phone left behind. So they went out during Obunso, he asked in a loud voice. Nneka cried, I warned them. I begged them. I even locked the door, but they must have sneaked out with their other phones. Ikenna paced around. Do you know what you've done? The gods don't forgive nonsense on sacred days. They checked every bush path. They went to the market. They checked the river, but there was no sign of Ego and no sign of Amaka. The next day, they walked slowly to the edge of the village, to the house of Chief Priest Duru, an old man with white chalk on his face and a voice like thunder. They knelt before him. Please help us, Ikenna begged. Our daughters are missing. The chief priest looked at them for a long time, then stood and entered his shrine. He came back holding a long staff and a small gourd. He poured libation on the earth, began to chant, Spirits of the land, eyes that see what we cannot see, where are the daughters of Ikenna and Nneka? The wind blew suddenly, the trees swayed, the fire in the shrine cracked loudly. Then there was silence. The chief priest opened his eyes. They crossed the forbidden paths, he said calmly. They danced before the gods and mocked the spirits. They were taken. Taken? Nneka screamed. Taken to where? The chief priest looked down. They are no longer in the land of the living. Nneka knelt in front of Chief Priest Jero, her eyes swollen with tears. Ikenna sat beside her, silent and broken. The chief priest stood quietly, holding his staff, staring at Nneka for a long time. Then he said in a calm but deep voice, You came here to find your daughters. She nodded quickly, weeping. But what if I told you they were never truly yours to keep? Nneka looked up sharply. What are you saying, wise one? The chief priest closed his eyes, poured water into a wooden calabash, and added white powder. He stirred it slowly. The water became still. The fire flickered strangely. A wind entered the shrine without warning. Look into the water and remember. Nneka leaned forward, staring. Then suddenly the image of her younger self appeared. A village girl appeared in the water, beautiful, proud, with long hair and sharp eyes. She danced in the village square, laughing loudly, while an older woman, her mother, stood at the corner, shouting her name. Nneka, come and help me pound yam. The girl laughed and walked away with her friends. Nneka, as a teenager, was surrounded by many suitors, but she insulted them one by one. She mocked their clothes, their shoes, and their gifts. You can't even afford slippers for yourself. You want to marry me, she would say. It was night. The old woman, her mother, was kneeling in front of a pot, crying bitterly. I carried her for 9 months, and this is how she repays me. Let her daughters do the same to her one day, so she will feel what I felt. Nneka gasped in the present time and shouted, No, no, my mother loved me. But the chief priest only nodded. Yes, she loved you, but you broke her spirit. You shamed her until her mouth cried out in pain. That pain became a curse. Nneka remembered now. She remembered how she laughed when her mother begged, how she ran off with dancers, mocking the ways of the elders, how she once destroyed her mother's prayer pot, saying, old people and their nonsense. She had married young, not because of love, but to escape correction. And when her mother died, she did not even weep. The past hit her like thunder. Kanan looked at her, confused. Why didn't you ever tell me this? She shook her head in shame. I buried it. I thought it was over. I thought I could start fresh. The chief priest stirred the water again. This time, the image showed Ego and Amaka twerking near the shrine. Then it showed the spirits of Nika's late mother, standing under the sacred tree, watching with folded arms. The curse did not just follow you, the priest said. It grew with your children. Your bloodline carried it like a basket carries fire. Nika fell to the ground. How do I break it? What do? I would do anything. The chief priest stood still for a while, then said, You must return to your mother's grave. You must go alone. You must kneel there and speak to the earth. And above all, you must confess out loud every prideful thing you ever did. Only truth can unlock the gate that pride has locked. Nika packed the white wrapper, a piece of yam, and a bottle of palm oil. She went alone, barefoot, through the forest path, back to her childhood village. She passed the old market square, where she used to dance. She walked past the shrine she once mocked. When she got to her mother's grave, overgrown with weeds and forgotten flowers, she knelt. She didn't speak for minutes. Then she began to cry. And then she began to confess, Mama, I was a proud fool. I forgot your tears. I ignored your voice. I thought I knew better. I became the very pain I caused you. Please, if you are listening, bring my daughters back. The wind whispered through the trees. A flower fell from above. As she stood up, she saw two butterflies, one red, one gold. The fly passed her and landed on her shoulder. Then a voice in her heart whispered, Go home, it is not too late. She turned and began the journey back home. Unsure of what waited, would her daughters return? Would the curse be broken? The only thing she knew was this. When a mother humbles herself before her mother's spirit, the earth listens. It was early morning in the village. Nika had just returned from a long journey. Her eyes were tired, her legs dusty. She hadn't even entered her room when she heard knocks at the gate. Knock, knock, knock. She opened it. She screamed. Ego and Amaka still there, but something was wrong. They were pale, dusty, hair scattered, no shoes. They didn't smile, they didn't wave, they just stared at her. Nika rushed to hug them. My children, you are back, you are alive. But when she spoke to them, they said nothing, not even one word. The whole village gathered quickly. Is it really them? They came back from the spirits, but why are they not talking? Ego and Amaka just sat side by side, holding hands, blinking like goats in the sun. Even when Ikena arrived and shouted, Where have you been, you stubborn girls? They simply looked at him. No response, no smile, no tears, and no voice. The chief priest was called again. He entered, touched their head gently and said, They returned, but their voices stayed behind. From that day, Nika became their hands, feet, and mouth. If they were hungry, she guessed what they wanted. If they needed to bathe, she poured the water. If they had stomach pain, they just pointed at their belly like small babies. If a mosquito bit them at night, they slapped the wall and pointed. She begged, Talk to me, please. Just say one thing. But nothing. They ate, slept, bathed, and sat. They followed her like quiet goats. Sometimes it was funny, like when Ego wanted pepper soup and Nika cooked yam porridge. Ego just stared at the pot in confusion, blinking. Or when Amaka pointed at the bathroom, but Nika thought she meant beans and gave her food instead. Weeks passed, the girls sat at home. No one came to greet them. No man asked for their hand in marriage. People said, Those are the ones who danced in front of the gods. Their mouths are closed, their pride is gone. Even the village tailor said, I don't need apprentice who cannot say needle. No handwork, no business, no marriage, only silence. Ikenna one day shouted, so all my daughters will be sitting at home like carved wood? Nneka hissed and answered, now you born them too. Carry one, let me carry the other. But deep inside, they were both broken. One Sunday morning, Nneka was cooking in the backyard. She didn't even notice Ego standing behind her until she heard a small shaky voice. Mama. She dropped her spoon. It fell into the fire. She turned. What did you say? Mom Ego whispered again, crying, I am sorry. Before she could respond, Amaka also came out slowly. Me too, Mama. They both hugged her and wept. They cried until the sun changed position. They told her everything they remembered. The marked spirits, the dark forest, the cold wind, the silence, the voices they couldn't answer, and the regrets. We should have listened. We were foolish. From that day, Ego and Amaka stayed humble. They joined their mother on the farm. They fetched water. They cooked. They greeted elders with 2 hands. The villagers were surprised. Are these not the same girls who once twerked near the shrine? Even the small children whispered, those are the ones whose spirits carried. Soon, other stubborn girls in the village changed. Boys started respecting traditions again. Phones were no longer louder than their parents' voices. Remember, what we do as parents, the rebellion, the pride, and shame can follow our children like a shadow. Plant good seeds. No matter how modern the world becomes, disrespecting your roots, your elders, and your culture has a price. Beauty without discipline is a candle in the wind. It shines and then disappears. A mother's cry is a curse when soaked in pain. Treat your parents well. Pride may carry you far, but only humility will bring you home. And so, the story of the foolish sisters became a warning, a tale whispered by firesides, and a name spoken by mothers to daughters for generations to come.